So when we open up and as we think about the library, and especially Queens Library, Queens is the most diverse county in the world, as I mentioned before, and you'll probably hear quite a few times throughout these workshops. And we're in a very unique place to be able to support immigrants and new Americans all the time through our services and through our programs. And as libraries have begun moving into the 21st century and have begun to modernize and really assess the needs of the community, we have become an even more crucial part of our communities and part of the immigrant experience. When we think about where libraries are and what place they have in the community, we must think about how do we allow and how we permit others to access the information and the resources that we have available. We're one of the few places, especially now, that offer this access without going online. But the difference between just going online and Googling is that the library also have supportive staff members who are there to make sure that the information can be vouched for and supported. So as we continue to think about our role on an individual and an organizational level, we want to think about what does it mean for an immigrant to experience our services or our libraries? What does it mean for a new American to come to me as a person and to ask me a question? Am I welcoming? Am I supportive? Am I empathetic to the situation? Do I seem like I'm frustrated? Do I seem like I'm confused? Or do I seem like I don't care? As we continue thinking about our roles, we want to think about the part that we play both in the organization and in the community. When we define public service, service in itself literally means to do something for somebody else, to serve, to be able to take whatever resources, knowledge, content matter that we know and we have mastered and be able to apply that in situations where others can then receive that same support. In Queens and in many other areas of the United States, this means that you're going to be working with very, very diverse groups. This means cultural, this means linguistically, this means socioeconomically, which we can tell every day we're running into these crossing points between and among all of our community members. So it's important that we demonstrate cultural competence, not just as a personal goal, but to ensure that we're demonstrating and providing the best possible customer service from Queens Library. And it's important that we think about ourselves as public servants because at the end of the day, all of us serve in some way, whether we're on the front line each day, whether we're librarians at the reference desk, or whether we're librarians who are working with children and putting on programming for families, whether we are customer service specialists, whether we're managers at adult learning centers, or whether or not we are providing informational and workforce development workshops, it's important to think about how we are crucial to the success of many customers. And when we think about how we view customers, we want to first address our own assumptions and our own biases. Throughout the next workshop that you'll be exploring, I define bias as in the most neutral state as preset assumptions that we have about the world around us. These biases can be placed on different cultures. These biases can be placed on different people. These biases can be placed on anybody due to language, due to race, due to gender, whatever we can think about. And these characteristics guide our ideas and guide how we practice our work. And when we think about how our assumptions are impacting those around us, this is both on a customer level and on a colleague level. So do we have biases against those of different cultural backgrounds because of the social practices that they have versus the social practices that we might be accustomed to? And biases and assumptions can both be useful and very hurtful when we're working with customers. Sometimes our biases might help. If we see somebody who might look like me, act like me, have my same language, I am more inclined to assist them and assist them to the best of my ability. But if I have some reservations about the customer or whoever's looking for assistance, then we run into different issues because now my reservations might not put me in the best position to assist that customer to the best of my ability. This can happen on any level, in any position. Sometimes we might feel that other coworkers or other staff members might not be as strong in certain areas. So we let our biases and our previous experiences get in the way of the true empathetic and customer and service focused points of view that we need. And in doing this, we want to ensure that anytime that we are addressing these biases, we're looking at them as I acknowledge that the bias exists. I understand that these are things that I can't always consciously fight, but I can demonstrate as much as possible the cultural competence and my willingness to understand about different cultures and different groups. This doesn't mean that today you have to stand up and go jump on Rosetta Stone and learn multiple languages in order to demonstrate cultural competence. But it does bring to mind what are certain methods and ideas that we can take now and that we can put in place immediately to ensure that we are demonstrating that I might not feel as comfortable, but I do understand where you're coming from. This can happen on any scale. We think about in libraries now, we're seeing large numbers of homeless populations come into the libraries. That's a demonstration of competence that beyond the socioeconomic status and the housing status of the individual, there are needs that need to be met. And how do we meet those needs? Even if we do not carry those services internally, do we know what are the community resources around us or in the city that are available to them? And if we don't know those things, how do we find those things out? Who are the people who we can reach out to as a resource in order to do that? And the focus of many of these trainings and many of this information is resource development, ensuring that you as library staff members are completely supported in what you do and how you do it so that we ensure that the customer is receiving the best service and that you are comfortable in doing the work that you do here at the library. So as we continue through the sessions, you will continually see different points of view, different instructions, different resources. And it is important that we take these and try to apply them as often as possible. This means that we must demonstrate these on a small basis, maybe in the beginning, collaborate with others, use the online forums to discuss certain issues or items that might come up, discuss and think about some of the barriers that we have on a personal and organizational level that might hold us back from effectively or efficiently demonstrating cultural competence. Does this mean that tomorrow we're all going to come out as superheroes and we're all going to be very, very knowledgeable? Doesn't mean that at all. But what it does mean is now we have more information and we're now more aware and making ourselves more aware of how we look, appear, and interact with others. And one good example of this was a survey conducted back in the early 2010s by YMCA of Greater New York. And what they did was they asked respondents to rank 9 different characteristics in what they noticed first. Included in this was race, gender, age, appearance, the distance that they had when they spoke with you. Additionally, they asked about the language basis. What were their facial expressions? And so when they ranked these and they weighed them, they found out that indeed the first 3 things that many people, and not all people, notice are race, gender, and age. Now, this was just ranking and it was a self-assessment on characteristics. And so this might not follow for everybody, but it is something to bring to light that we do notice these things first, and that does not mean we have negative or ill feelings about it, and it doesn't mean that we have overwhelmingly positive feelings and reactions to it. It simply means that we need to acknowledge that some things we notice first, and because we notice these things, our thought processes are now controlled or at least focused because these things are the first things we take in. So if I take in gender first, for example, if I take in gender first and I see gender, now there are certain mental processes that occur, and all of these are psychological processes that are very naturally occurring, and many of them can be very neutral. However, it is how we react from these processes that allow us as frontline staff members and as customer serving workers to be able to say, I noticed this first, and I realized that I had a bias, or I realized that some of my thoughts may not have been the best thoughts that I wanted to think, and that may impact how I'm able to now serve this population or this person. Now, what can I do to over time build up certain competencies internally so that if I see this person again, or if I encounter other people like them with the same characteristics, I don't have these overwhelmingly negative or overwhelmingly positive feelings about that, because those are all based off of the assumptions from the characteristics that we take in. As we think about what cultural competence is, and as you go through the workshops that you'll do today, we want to think about how we reflect cultural competence. And first, it reflects in our attitudes. Our attitudes are the first thing that people see. That doesn't mean that they can read your thoughts, but it does mean that they are taking in mind your facial expressions. They're taking in mind a lot of the outward facing characteristics and the outward facing behaviors that you have. And when we think about what we are displaying outwardly, many of those are reflecting back into our own internal processes. And so, if we want to consider what we are doing and how we're doing it, we want to also consider what is our attitude when it comes to working with specific groups of people. This includes that one person who comes to your desk every single time they come to the library, and they always ask the same exact question every single day. And it feels like no matter what you say or how you take them through the processes, they seem to always come back with the same problem. How do we deal with that? Are we now displaying certain things that might seem as if we don't want them to keep coming back, which is a feeling and very, very valid, of course? Or are we showing that, yes, I might be frustrated internally, but I might not know why this person's having trouble so much with it? It could be that they simply don't have the support or the access to that information outside of the library. It might be that these people are coming to you as an expert because you demonstrated your competence to them. And so it is important that we continue to assess how we do these. And these are going to be different discussions and activities that you'll have throughout the workshops. Also, our awareness is important when it comes to being able to support others. Are we aware of, one, the situation that people are going through? Two, are we aware of what we are doing as in programs, as in services? And are we looking at how we can continue to partner with other organizations, partner internally in order to be able to completely support the customer in any of their informational endeavors? If they're looking for assistance with creating an email, if they're looking for resources for housing, we must be prepared to be able to support them in any of those items, in those ventures. And really, finally, for today, cultural competence is demonstrated on both a personal and an organizational level. On a personal level, this means that we are observing really how we are interacting with each other, how we're interacting with customers, whether or not we're coming off as somebody who's extremely supportive. And we'll read about um, the library being a street level bureaucratic organization, which you'll see later in the workshops. And additionally, we want to know whether or not we are really supporting this through looking at how we review our mission statement and how we review our core organizational values. And these things are in place to ensure that as many people that we can demonstrate these values on a daily basis. And when you go through the workshop, especially the cultural competence one, you will review the Queen's Library websites, or you'll review the Queen's Library mission and core values on the website, and you'll be able to address whether or not you as an individual meet these core values each day and meet these organizational missions each day, or whether there's some place that we do need to modify our daily work, whether that's as a team or whether that's as an organization or an individual basis. And this really leads to us taking responsibility as the people who have the information, have access to that information, and being able to now apply it throughout the workshops and throughout the work that we do. Most of this and all of these resources are really to empower the staff members to better support each other and better support our customers. Okay, so that is going to conclude the content, the application version. I am going to stay on for a couple of extra minutes. I know today is a short day because I want you to spend much of the rest of the time logging into the learning management system, making sure you get in and you get registered for the program. If you haven't done so already, please do so today because one, you need to complete the knowledge pre-assessment, which will be on Workshop 1's content. Now, it should be on the first slide, but there is a link that says pre-training items. So it's going to be within that first group of exercises in Workshop 1. Please take that by the end of this week. All of the pre-assessment items, post-assessment items, any feedback systems are all going to go straight to our evaluators at New York University's McSilver Institute. They are the ones that will process the information. Queen's Library will not see any unique or individual responses when it comes to those assessments because we do want that to remain anonymous and honest. And these items are not for you to be rated on how well you do your job or how well you know everything. It's really to know where you are to help you to realize what are some of the things you might want to focus on as you continue through the workshops. Additionally, if you can, begin completing Workshop 1 and start Workshop 2, as Workshop 2 will help advise some of the information that we'll share next Tuesday in that workshop, in the webinar.